Well, hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Ladies and Gents Listen Up. And man, are you all listening? All of the feedback. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Before we get started, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this information with somebody else, right? How are you today, Mr. Carpenter?
I'm doing well, Dr. Liz, and you?
I'm doing well. I am well. I'm excited. I'm always excited to get into our conversations. It's just so much that we pull out and that we share. So I am excited to get into the conversation.
Good.
So before we get started, we are going to let's go into Grandma's cookie jar, and then we're going to talk about a couple of the comments that we got over the week. All right,
Okay.
Grandma's cookie jar, and for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, we go into Grandma's cookie jar because Grandma's cookie jar holds so many great recipes, but in our case, so much wisdom. So we're going to pull out Grandma's cookie jar secret today. Before we get into our topic, and today's topic, we're going to talk about relationship issues, conflict resolution without the drama, right? It's going to be interesting. So, today's cookie jar secret from Grandma's cookie jar says you can't always be strong, but you can always be brave.
Is that great or great? What'd you say at the end of that?
Brave. You can always
Okay.
be brave, right? And I really like that because it takes the pressure off of being perfect, right? Being always having to be perfect. But you can have courage and you can be brave. And on the flip side, it says, live and let live. Simple. Simple and to the point, right? Alrighty, so for the comment from off of last week's, I believe it was the episode a couple episodes ago when Rose, no, it's Rosa Tiller. Rosa Tiller. We're not gonna make that mistake again. We're putting on the sexy specs. I She says, I agree with Dr. Liz. Most women that I know want to be in a committed relationship. She said most women that she knows do want a committed relationship. And this was from one of them was am I ready for love? And the other one was men versus women. Is there a fear of commitment? And I believe that's where her comment was pulled from. So thank you, Rosa Tiller, for your comment. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into today's topic. Let's talk about now how do we handle these relationship issues where there's conflict? How do we come to resolution without drama? Hmm.
Okay. Well, before we get into that, can I address something about Tiller response, her
Absolutely.
comment? Right now, the Surgeon General has said that one of the biggest epidemics in America right now today is widespread loneliness. Widespread loneliness. Matter of fact, Surgeon General said it's as bad as smoking a dozen of cigarettes a day. That's huge. So I guess what Rose is saying is true. Not only most women, but most men too. And
Wow.
remember, we said a while ago that women, if they don't have the intimacy of that relationship, they become depressed. And men, in return, if they don't have that, they become angry. So the Surgeon General has did something that's a problem in America, and that's a big issue right now. So, Dr. Liz, I appreciate you for coming on board and taking the lead and a stand in trying to help relationships and help people. Because when you talk about relationships, and we'll get into our relationship conflict and issues, because it may be one reason why people aren't in relationship or lonely because of the conflicts,
Hmm.
because of the relationship issues,
Yes.
because of unresolved conflict and issues. And if they have drama, I know the deal. If it's drama, you really don't want no parts of that. So that's
Absolutely.
great. That's right in tune with what we're talking about today. All right. Now, when you're dealing
Absolutely.
with drama, the first thing comes to my mind, if drama, drama normally is a breakdown of communication, a breakdown of communication. So if you want to resolve a issue in a relationship, the first thing is to work on the communication. What do you think about that, Dalis?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, and I've said it over and over again, that communication is like that's one of the pillars, one of the foundational pieces to hold the relationship together is communication, open communication, honest communication. And so when we talk about conflict, conflict is normal, right?
Yes.
It can bring out parts of your relationship that you may need some work in. So conflict is okay. A lot of times, sometimes we kind of when we feel like there's maybe a conflict, we hold back and we don't really talk about it in fear of. A lot of times it's fear of loss or being misunderstood. But I think that's where all of that being able to just be open and being able to and actually present what the conflict is, because
Yes.
oftentimes it's not even the specific issue, but it's the way in which it's being brought to you that it puts you on a defensive before you can even really get down to what's the real issue. So I think, again, we're talking about conflict without drama. We want to leave the drama out, and we want to really, really talk about what is the real issue here, so that we can have a win-win kind of, solution, or either agree to disagree. But as long as we are, I like to say, in conflict resolution, as long as we're fighting above the belt, right?
Yes, and let's stay with communication a little bit more because you brought out some good points in what you were bringing out, Dr. Liz. And a lot of times when the drama comes from, it's misunderstanding and assumptions. That's a huge issue in communication. I thought you said this. I thought you meant that. I assume you understood. I assume you appreciated. I assume you gave me your okay. That's a big issue. That's a
Absolutely.
big issue. And in the
Absolutely.
back of my mind, I'm smiling because, I remember I was married for 29 years. And I remember whenever we had arguments or we had problems, it was always the better part of that argument was the ending when we recovered. And I'm not going to say how we celebrated the agreement.
But you had to get there somehow, right? You had to get to the
Yes.
celebration. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
You
So
had to get
so
to that
those
celebration.
conflicts strengthen us. Those conflicts gave us a foundation that we could build and grow from because we knew that if we went through that issue, we had what it takes to go through the next issue.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we went through an issue, we realized that we had been through bigger stuff than that before. So it made it easy to tackle some of the problems. And that was straight. And one of the biggest things in communication is your fear to share your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
That's big because when you don't share your feelings and emotions, and we're not gonna go back to that 25 and 75, but when you fear to share your emotions, your partner don't know what you need or your partner can't read you. Because not only should I know your love language, I should also know your triggers.
Right,
And
right.
if you don't tell me what's your emotions and your fears, and you don't express your feelings and needs to me, how do I know? I'm not a mind reader.
Absolutely. You said something huge. There was two things in the communication realm. One, you said assumption, right? And that we have to really, really work on assuming, because we do that and we'll tell ourselves this big old story about what the person said, and it's not even what they said or what they meant. So I think sometimes in healthy communication, if you go back and pare back what you think you heard, right? This is what I heard you say. And then oftentimes the person will say, "Wait, no, 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 I didn't say that," or "No, that's not what I meant." But that's a good way to be able to bridge that communication, and also you talked about assumption, and again, I just go back to again just open, clear communication and being able to really be in tune with your feelings so that you can convey that over to somebody else, because oftentimes we'll say, "Oh, well, you should have knew." I remember my son telling me one time, when he was young, and he's gonna get me for this story, but we laugh about it now. He says, we were leaving church one Sunday, and I said, make sure that you go and to take a shower and wash your hair, right? Well, those are two things in his mind. In my mind, it was go get in the shower and take. I didn't say it that way. So when I went in the restroom, he was standing outside the shower washing his hair, and the shower was running, but he was standing outside it, right? And fussing at him, and he said, "No, Ma, didn't you just hear what the pastor said? Men are single. The single function. They do, women multitask. Men do. You told me to wash my hair, and then you told me to get in the shower. So that's how, a great example of when we communicate, right? I thought it was a clear directive. He thought it was a clear directive. Totally different pages, right? So again, that's how we can break it down when we talk about healthy and good communication, right? But what I loved is that he felt safe enough to say, but Ma, this is what I heard, when he was young. This is what I thought you said, So I think that's just a good example of clear, honest communication, and then also providing a safe space for your partner to communicate with
Yes.
you. And because if every time you say something to them, they go into a rage, or or they don't allow you to have that safe space, then eventually you start to not wanting to express that, because now here we go back into this argument again.
Just think about, Dr. Liz, you're in a relationship with someone you love, and you go through these things day in and day out, like you and your son, when y'all went through that, and you were able to tell him, and he was able to tell you, and you guys could smile about it. You could laugh about it because it was funny, but that's a closeness that blends, that help you to blend and become as one. So those type of things are needed in a relationship. That's a solid foundation. All right, so let's go out of communication. Let's talk about differences and expectations. When we talk about different expectations, we're talking about managing the difference in your personality, your values, and your interests. Because if I'm interested in getting rich and you're interested in just being okay, when I tell you that I need you to work more overtime and you tell me, nah, I want to spend more time with the kids, somewhere we gotta come into understanding.
But I think that's where those hard conversations at the beginning, so that you can understand who you are with, right? So you can really understand that, because I'll use an example. When I was married, we were so different. We thought we knew each other, but we absolutely found out that we didn't, and we found out that it wasn't that I was a bad person or he was a bad person. It was just that we didn't line up together, right? Because I am visionary, and I do look beyond just the regular, okay, yes, I want, go to work, pay your bills, go on vacation, and let's start it all over again. I see more than that. And he didn't. He wanted that. So if you sit down and you really communicate that, then you can kind of see what your deal breakers are. Because what kind of life, what kind of a life do you want to put together? Yes. And so, some of the conflicts, there's going to be conflicts, but some of the conflicts can be avoided if we decide, oh, this is not the right person for me, or this is the right person for me, because we support one another. Hey, let's both work, 12, 100 hours a day so that we can make this dream a reality. Or, hey, I just want to go on vacation. I don't want to do all that working. Okay, then. So that's good. I like what you said about really understanding who you're with and who you're partnering with, because it is a partnership.
Yes, in relationship building, we call that having realistic expectations in a relationship. Because I've always been an overachiever. Ever since I was a kid, I was from a family of 14, and we struggled as a family. So everybody had to go in and bring stuff in for the family. In the weekends, I had to go and cut people grass, pick up bottles and everything to make money. And then I make the money, I bring it into my mom, and she would actually use it to help with the meals and whatever like that was. So my life has always been an overachiever, and I don't know how to turn that switch off at times. So I noticed a lot of times in my relationships, I had issues because I was thinking that we should be doing this, and I would plan that, and my partners would kind of say, well, yeah, do we need all that? Do it take all that? Have you ever heard anything like that, Dr. Liz? Give me your comments on that.
Well, yeah, no, Andre, especially that's what you just talked about. You talked about an entrepreneur and somebody that's a blue collar or 9 to 5 or what have you, that wants to do that corporate work and then come home and such or what have you. So you do what, in every bullet point that we have, we're going to come back to communication. Even
Yes.
communication, even from the beginning, like from the very beginning, when you're a couple of weeks into dating or whatever, you start to really
Mm-hmm.
get to know that person. And oftentimes I think a lot of conflict comes from, we have it in our minds that, okay, this is who the
Mm-hmm.
person is presenting to be, but guess what? I can change them. I can love them into my perspective, versus actually just really seeing who that person is. Does that person, do you mesh together? And then, are your hopes, your dreams, your desires, are they in alignment with one another? And you're still going to remain your independence. You're not your independence, but your individuality, because that's what you bring to the table, your individuality. And you have to have something different, right? You don't want, it'll get boring if you're just so much alike. Like, I'm marrying myself, but you want to make sure that there are some differences, but not differences that are deal breakers. Does it
Yes.
line up? Does that person, does their thought process, their mindset, does it line up with mine? Their level of integrity, their level of character. Are we Bonnie and Clyde? So we mesh. That's what we do. Or are we? Hey, I'm a dream fighter. I'm a mindset builder, a personal development person. Okay, that's fine. Well, Bonnie, stay over there with Clyde. You know what I'm saying? I think
You
that's
are
where,
so smooth with that, Dr. Liz.
because I'm so clear. It took a lot of hard knocks and bruises and a lot of bumpy roads to get to the point that I'm just clear. I'm clear.
Yes. And what we
Boundaries.
call that in
Go ahead.
relationship building, we call that the need for compromise and flexibility.
Yes,
Compromise and flexibility, because you got to realize something. You got two people. You guys are very different in a lot of ways, and you're alike in a lot of ways. But those ways that you're different sometimes create bumps. Sometimes create sparks. Sometimes those sparks aren't love sparks. Sometimes those sparks are headaches. So when that comes out, you got to realize that you have to compromise and have flexibility, because you're two people blending to be one. What are your
absolutely.
thoughts about that, Dr. Liz?
No, absolutely. So, yeah, some
Okay.
flexibility is good. You can't just be so hard nosed, because you don't know, as you start to grow. As you start to grow together, you do become one. So, you
Mm-hmm.
can have some flexibility, but you also, in that flexibility, you want to establish some boundaries, right? You must have
Yes.
some boundaries. You want to treat each other with respect. Even during an argument, there's some key triggers during an argument. As far as, like, you talked about knowing your triggers. Well, swearing, name calling, ridiculing. All of those things are unhealthy, right? So you don't. So
Mm-hmm.
you want to avoid those when you get into healthy conflict resolution. You don't want, without drama. You don't want to start that, because when you open yourself up to somebody, you open yourself up and you become vulnerable. So you share
Mm-hmm.
your deepest, your insecurities, you start to share these things. And so when it's time for resolving a conflict, that is not the time to go in that in that folder and pull out some things that is going to knock that person to their knees. That's not, me and my partner, we talk about um, do you want to be right, or do you want to be whatever your goal is, right? So in a relationship, do you want to be right, or do you want this relationship to work? And so, that going in and grabbing that harsh secret that and hitting them below the belt, just so you can throw your hands up like Muhammad Ali and say, oh, that's not the goal here, right? That's not the goal. Keep the
you
goal in
know,
mind.
that remind me of my army days. In my army days, we came up with a slogan: "Do you want to be right?" And to be sometimes you can be dead right over there. so, so that, so,
That's a good
so.
one too. So respect those boundaries. But too, I think even getting into the point of discussing, some of, like, you need to know what your deal breakers are before you can even convey that to somebody else. A lot of people don't even know until it comes up. They say, "Oh, wait a minute, I can't deal with that. I didn't know." But you really need to
Yes.
kind of understand what your deal breakers are. So, what do you think about boundaries?
Yes, boundaries are great because you need boundaries. As a matter of fact, boundaries take us into the big dog in the fight, conflict resolution. I remember the first time I heard that word. I just began to do training for youth sports and conflict resolution, because we had a lot of issues. So I used to fear that word. But in relationships, that's a big word you have to deal with. And the first way to deal with that is active listening. You have to actively listen, because a person normally tells you what they want or what they don't want. And if you're not actively listening, you may miss those cues and those subtle hints. So boundaries, a person tell you, here's what my boundaries are. I don't like this. I don't want to do that. I won't do this. So we shouldn't do that. If you're not actively listening, you may miss that. And the reason why you may want to listen, because if you have a disagreement with that boundary, you might say, well, hey, look, Dr. Liz, you say you don't want to do this. I understand, but that's a big part of what I saw in our relationship. What I saw in you, can we talk about it? And then that gives you a chance to reevaluate. So you have to actively listen. And then the next thing is you got to encourage open and honest communication. Because sometimes if you tell me what I want to hear, and that's not what you're feeling in your heart, and that's not open, all you're doing is pushing the can down the road. We're going to deal with that again.
Absolutely.
So you want to have honest and open communication. And then you want to demonstrate that you understand and empathy. Because a lot of times, I just want to be heard. If you hear me and say, okay, Rufus, look, I understand. I see how you feel. Even though I disagree, I can understand how you feel. That make me feel so much better, because you giving me, you show you understand. I'm heard.
Absolutely.
You and I might not agree, but at least I'm heard.
Sure. And that's so important. That's so important. I think that even goes to respect, right? That means I'm heard, but you also respect how I feel. You may not agree, which is okay, but at least we're having this conversation, or we're having this good open communication. One of the things that you just said that really, it kind of tickled me a little bit, because I thought about a movie that I watched once where the young lady wanted this young man to pursue her and date her, and she found out everything that he liked, and she became that, right? And so, talking about conflict, towards the middle and end of the relationship, while they were dating, after a while, she just blew up, because she said, I can't do this anymore. I can't stand it when you feed me. It was just down to all the little things that she just was like, oh my God, this is not me. And it was just such a good movie, because it just showed you, again, that's where a lot of conflict come from too, because at the beginning you might do this little masquerade dance, and then as you go through it, you start peeling off layers, and then like, wait, okay, I can't do it anymore. I don't like that. I don't like sushi. I can't do it anymore. So that's helping you to deal with the conflict. Sometimes it's like, well, how did that happen? Or that just happened, or no, it didn't. It was something may have been brewing that we kept sweeping under the rug. And if you keep sweeping that under the rug, you get that big bump, right?
Yes, yes.
I wanted to segue that into finding out what the real issue is, right?
Yes, yes.
Are we arguing really because the toothpaste cap is not on? Some people want it on. Want it on. But are we really having this major blow up because I ran out the house quickly and I forgot to put the toothpaste cap on there? Or is there another issue that's deeper that we didn't discuss, but now that toothpaste cap was the last straw? What is it? So what is the real issue? And then also, it's very important to find out, are the wants and needs of both parties being met? Or is it one party that just always, okay, what movie do you want to see? Okay, I want to see a horror. I want to see this. I really don't like horror, but I'm going to go just because. But I'm not going to say anything. After a while, you're going to get tired of being scared because you didn't watch those horror movies. You know what I'm saying? So both parties, it's important that both parties' needs are being met. But if you're assuming that your partner can read your mind, then your needs can go unmet, because you're assuming that they're supposed to know, and they honestly may not know, right?
Yes, and we call that finding common ground. That's what we call that, finding common ground. You identify your shared goals and values. That's the first thing you do. What's common ground to you guys? What's the midpoint? Where your needle and where their needle is. And that when you find that good, then you're seeking mutual benefit solutions. If a problem come up, you want to find something mutual that you both can agree on, and it's a win-win for everybody. It's not a win-loss or loss.
Exactly.
Yes, and that's what makes us different. And that's emphasis on compromising and just being that the couple that you really are. To realize you guys both are paddling the boat. If you're going to go straight, both of you got to be paddling in the same direction. If you don't want
Right.
in going that way and I'm only in going that way, we got a mess.
You also
Okay.
want, absolutely. You also want to, you want to focus on what matters, right?
Yes,
What
yes,
really matters, right? You want to focus
yes.
on that. And I love one of the episodes that we did some time ago when I interviewed couples about real love, and they talked about, coming together maybe even like quarterly and saying, okay, we're busy and we're doing everything that we're doing, but let's get back, let's just talk about it for a little bit. Are you happy? Are you
Yes,
being fulfilled? Are there
yes.
something? One of the questions that they asked each other that I thought was just really profound was, is there anything that I could be doing better? Right? It's like,
Uh-huh.
is there anything that I can be doing better, or what can I do for you better? And really, honestly, being able to talk about that, or is there something that I'm doing that that really gets under your skin? What is it? And then we talk about it. Okay, so that's another good one. So we can start to kind of wrap up a little bit, but
Yes, but as we wrap up, let's share what me and your mentor. Once a time ago, me and you shared the same mentor, and the
mhm.
mentor always said that if he go in the dark, he's going to teach you how to cut on the light switch. So let's give him some problem solving. So
Okay.
problem solving. When you have issues that you can't resolve in the relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a relationship dating, then what you have to first realize something to stop the drama. First thing do, break the complex down into simpler parts. Break it down. Don't deal with the big overarching problem. Break it down into smaller parts, because sometimes just by breaking it down into smaller parts, you can solve it better. And then you guys are working on it together. Then also together, if you have a problem, brainstorm together. Say, honey, what do you think? How do you think we can make this better? Honey, what can we do differently? Oh, honey, what can we put together and make this work? That's the first thing. And then next thing, you guys got to evaluate what are suitable options for you guys. Okay?
Mm,
All right.
that's good.
Give me
That's
Dr.
good.
Liz.
Had a couple things that to consider was, does the matter change how you feel about each other? Right? Does that matter? Does it? And is it that big that that it's gonna, like you said, is it gonna create a win-win, or is it something that we can agree to disagree on and just move on and move past it? Can we do that? Right? Does it force you to compromise your beliefs or your morals? Right? Does it? That's something to consider when you're thinking about
Yes.
compromising. Does it force you? And there's a couple other, stress your position. So it's okay in conflict resolution to stress your point of view, as long as you keep it respectfully. Respectfully, but it's okay to stand flat-footed in what you feel and what you think, just as long as you're doing it respectfully. But also consider your partner's perspective or your partner's point of view. Right? Sometimes we
Yes.
don't step into somebody else's shoes. Sometimes we
Yes.
just, it's just me, and it's all about the circle of yourself. If you're in a relationship, it's important, and it's also, like we said before, just kind of bringing it full circle, is give each other room to express how they truly feel. Give each other
Yes.
room, and then I think too, in respectful communication, it's not talking over the person. It's actually, oftentimes we're listening for when we're going to speak, and we don't really hear what the other person is saying. And like you said earlier at the beginning, as long as the person feels heard and respected, and you're showing love, I think you can really work through any of the issues or challenges when we consider
Yes.
everything that we talked about: your morals, your character. What is it that what is it that you want? Are you being fulfilled? Are you fulfilling them? So all of these things are considerations when you're talking about healthy conflict resolution without drama, you know. So I think that's
Yes. Yes.
kind of
Yes.
pretty sums it up, right?
Yes, I love this. I love this. It seems like when me and you start talking about subjects like this, it's so near and dear to us that we can go on and on. So I appreciate that, Dr. Liz. And then two things I want to end on this. Avoid interruption and rushing to judge. And just the last part of this piece, learn to practice forgiveness and let go.
Ooh, that's so good. That is so good. So good. Yeah. Add one more thing to it. If you're sharing a housing together, don't go to sleep angry. It's hard to sleep on the edge of the mattress, holding on so you don't fall or so you don't touch one another, right? You don't wake up in a very good mood, and you don't want to hear conflict resolution, right? So I think a great topic though, we should tackle the topic of the epidemic of loneliness. I think we can bring out some great points in that. Let's think about it. Alrighty, you all. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I think there was some peace in there. I kind of felt some peace, some breakthrough there. Anyhow, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share this information with somebody else. And don't forget, stay fearless. Bye for now.